Hi guys, it's Ankita. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I talk about books here, and if you haven't already subscribe to my channel. It motivates me and you can follow along on my reading journey. In this video, I am going to talk about this monster of a book, Middlemarch by George Eliot. I finished reading this book a couple of months ago, but I was deliberately putting off talking about this book because it's quite intimidating. It's a huge book, and honestly, I just don't feel I'm qualified enough to talk about a George Eliot book. Having said that, I do have a degree in literature, so I should be able to do that. So here is me talking about Middlemarch, and I'll try to keep this as short as possible. Okay, so let me start with when did I first hear about Middlemarch? So when I was pursuing my degree, this book was included in the course. I think it was part of the English novel course that I was taking, and I had already read and analyzed and studied, I believe, 9 other novels, and then at the very end, I picked up this one and I tried reading it, and I think I had like 2 weeks to not only read this, but study the text, study the characters and everything. And if you've read this book, 2 weeks, it was just not enough for me back then. I tried and I gave up back then, and I said, I'm probably never going to read this one. But I have a reading buddy. We both decided to read this book together. So we started in September last year, and we finished this book, I believe, in April. And boy, was it a journey reading this book. And while I was reading this, I was constantly thinking, wow, this is a book that everyone needs to read. There's so much wisdom packed into it. And George Eliot truly had a skill of drawing up characters. The way she describes characters and the trajectory of these characters' lives that we follow in Middlemarch is truly remarkable. But let me tell you in brief what this book is about. In this book, we follow several characters. One of them is Dorothea. Dorothea Bro is a young woman who is quite, I don't want to use the word innocent, but she is quite naive. She wants to live a very purposeful life. She thinks her purpose is to serve someone who has great ambitions. So we follow her along, and she does not realize that the world is not as simple as she thinks it is. So she finds a man who is quite scholarly, and she wants to serve him, to be of great help to him. She is quite a wonderful character. Now we have another character who is a physician who moves to this place, Middlemarch, and he takes over a practice. He is also someone who is ambitious in the sense that he wants to experiment and wants to contribute to science, to medicine. He's a bit different with his approach to treating his patients, and we see what his time in Middlemarch is like, him as an outsider in Middlemarch. Very interesting. Those are the 2 characters that I followed, that I analyzed from the beginning to the end, and what a character arc, especially for Dorothea. Absolutely loved her character arc. With Lydgate, it was just very, very interesting to study a character like Lydgate. I mean, George Eliot, brilliant. So we have this physician, then we have Fred Wincey, I think. Is that how you say his last name? Well, Fred Wincey, who is such a good man, but he has problems, and that is he doesn't know how to manage money. We have another man who is supposed to be really morally sound, but he turns out to be morally corrupt. But what basically this book is about is we follow these characters and we follow their relationships, the choices they made early on in life, and the consequences of those choices. Now, not all of the choices they made were wrong. For some, the choices do work out really well, but for a few of the characters, they really make them grow, and for some of them, it just results in their downfall. The text in this book is extremely dense. It took me quite some time to read one chapter. I don't even know how many hours I might have put into reading 785 pages. 785 pages of contemporary fiction is nothing. It's nothing. It's very easy to just fly through it. But a George Eliot book, not so much. Reading this book is a very slow process. I was looking for audiobooks online. My library didn't have an audiobook, Middlemarch audiobook. I found some on YouTube and those audiobooks were just not fun. So I gave up on audiobook and I just read each and every sentence on my own, which at times was fun when I was reading about characters that I liked. But then there is a lot of politics in here. It is set in the 19th century English provincial town. It's basically we follow the lives of people. All of their lives are intertwined. And when you think about a community, what do you talk about? You know, you talk about the weather, you talk about the lives of the people, and then there is one thing that in common influences everybody's life, and that is politics. So there is some political discussion in this, which, you know, if you are interested in knowing about the 19th century politics, then this is a great book. You know, you can kind of sit and think about it more. I was really not interested that much. I just looked up the main political events. So there are a few chapters in here which were extremely slow. I was absolutely not interested in that. But it was still a page turner because I wanted to know what happens to the characters that I was following. All the time I put into this book was really worth it. Another thing I noticed while reading this book is that George Eliot, she is the writer for, I think, a very well-read audience, because she refers to all these artists and she makes these references to literature back then. And I feel she totally wrote for a well-read audience. I believe this is Victorian literature. And if you think about Victorian literature, think about Dickens. Dickens used to write for everyone. His fiction was for everyone. I don't think George Eliot's fiction was meant for everyone. I loved how beautifully George Eliot drew these characters. They were relatable in the sense that, let's take a character, Caleb Garth, in this. I know a person like Caleb Garth in my life. I know someone who is like Lydgate. I know, because they are all so real. And that brings me to the fact that this is very realistic fiction. It gives you a glimpse into what life would be like based on your choices, and they all revolve around the theme of mostly marriage. We follow these characters and their love interests and their partners and their lives together, and we don't really see everyone having a happily ever after. We see the true struggles in their marriages. Money is a big factor. Expectations, you know, a husband and a wife can have different expectations. Their values are different, and all these things need to be considered before making that big decision of spending lives together, of getting married, and obviously that doesn't happen always, right? So realistic fiction. I really liked the love story of Fred and Mary. They are like perfect couple. I love them. They are so good. But it was amazing to follow their story and to see that even though they are such good human beings, everyone has some vices. And so those imperfections can really disrupt a happy life, a potentially happy life. And even true love might have practical hurdles to overcome. That was such a poorly constructed sentence. I will forever love Dorothea's character. She just sees good in everything. She reminded me a little bit of, was it Margaret from North and South, the main character from North and South. You will find that this book has a lot of drama because you're following a community, and obviously every community has tons of drama. This is no different, but there is just enough humor to get you through the book. There is, you know, you follow these marriages, you see struggles with wealth, there's love and there's crime. Then there are true horrors of life, those temptations. This character of Will Ladislaw, who was like, I won't say a lot, but interesting character. A little bit of politics in here. I won't say it is heavily laden with politics, but there is politics. Lastly, it's a very slow read, but so worth it. It's a very difficult book to recommend, I truly believe that everyone should read this book. If you do like these themes that I just mentioned, I think you should read this book. If you invest the time in reading this and you truly try to understand the characters, you will take back with you not only a good story, but also a lot of wisdom. While I was reading this book, I realized that I was not just seeing the characters grow, but I could feel myself grow as well, if that makes any sense. It's such a lovely book. Even though I recommend that every woman should read this book, or in fact even men, learn something from Lydgate, okay? Learn from his life. Learn from the trajectory of his life in this book. I think everyone should read this book in their early 20s or before you get married, before you make some big decisions in life. Read this book and I am sure it will be worth it. Okay, I'm gonna end this video with a quote. And this is something that Dorothea says in chapter 72. And here it goes. What do we live for if it is not to make life less difficult to each other? Do let me know in the comments down below if you have read this book or if you have any more questions about this book. Share your thoughts in the comments, yeah. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. Like I said, it does motivate me a lot. And like this video, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.